Hafa I'm Diana Artero, and I work for the Guam Department of Education Vision Program here on island. I am the teacher of visual impairments here, as well as the orientation and mobility instructor. And I'm here with my colleague, Lizelle. I think
she might be frozen.
Okay, so Lizelle is from Saipan, and she is also a teacher of visual impairment as well as the orientation and mobility instructor for Saipan. And she's also a special ed teacher, is my understanding.
Hi, I'm so sorry I got kicked out.
There you go.
I'm back. Hi, everyone. My name is Lizelle Maris. I'm from Saipan. I'm a special education teacher, also a teacher of the visually impaired and an orientation and mobility specialist. So I'm going to start now. I'm sorry. Okay, so how do we see? We see with our eyes, but we also see with our brain. Images that we see all around us comes in through the eyes, and then the brain gives us, the brain translates it for us so that we see, it translates it into what we see, is what I'm saying. Yeah, next slide, please. So how the eye works is light enters through our eyes through the pupil, that small little black circle in our eye. And then the light hits the retina, which is really far back behind our eye. And then special cells called photoreceptors turn the light into electrical signals. These electrical signals travel from our retina, way back in the eye, through the optic nerve that connects to our brain, all the way back to the back of our brain, which is where our visual cortex is. And that's where it processes the information, gives it back to our retinas, and then it's how we see what we see outside. Okay, so if the visual part of our brain is injured, our vision is affected. Our eyes could be fine, but if that visual part of our brain is affected in any way, injured in any way, damaged in any way, and it affects our vision. Just like if our eyes are injured, nothing's wrong with our brains, but if our eyes are injured, our vision is also affected. You can see our eyes as sort of the windows to what the brain sees. Okay, next slide, please. So going into that, we're going to talk a little bit about cortical visual impairment, also known as CVI. There's an example of the injury to the visual cortex, the part of the brain that affects vision, even though there are no injuries to the eyes. So a lot of students or a lot of kids, a lot of people with CVI, often their eyes are fine. Even when they go to an eye doctor, eyes are fine, eyes are healthy, but they seem like they're not seeing. We've heard parents say, you know, they're looking through me, or the doctor says that nothing's wrong with the eyes, but they can't pick me out of a crowd, or they can't match the items that I want them to match, things like that. So children have difficulty using visual input that they are receiving. CVI does get better. It can get worse, but usually it does get better. There are ways to improve your vision when you have CVI. It is suspected when there is any form of brain injury, like students who have cerebral palsy. We always want to check if they also have CVI, because that affects the same area of the brain as the vision. Okay, next. So
here yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, so the 10 characteristics of CVI are basically characteristics that children will display, and they're observable characteristics. So, you know, keep in mind that these characteristics are not a diagnosis. It's not to say that the child has some sort of eye condition. We leave that more or less up to the professionals. Of course, an ophthalmologist or a teacher of visual impairments will do an actual assessment. So these 10 characteristics of CVI are not necessarily assessments or evaluations. It's more or less observations to kind of help guide how we can support the child who has CVI. You know, that's just something we want to keep in mind, is that these 10 characteristics, when observed in our child, will allow us to have a better conversation with our ophthalmologist and with the child's teacher of visual impairment, so that the assessments that are conducted to give a diagnosis or to give an eval on what the child can and cannot see, these characteristics give us some sort of guidance to it. So that's something to keep in mind. And those 10 characteristics, we start off with color preference, and we're going to go through the slides with all the different characteristics. So the first one we have is color preference, need for movement, visual latency, visual field preferences, need for light, difficulty with distance viewing, visual reflex responses, difficulty with visual novelty, absence of visual reach, and difficulties with visual complexity. Next slide. So when we talk about color preference, color is more or less, not to say that the child is not going to look at other colors. They will look at other colors, but when we want to get their attention and have them focus on the details of these objects that we're presenting, or something that's in their environment, color preference is definitely where we want to be. And they will look at certain colors in specific to that object, things that are familiar to them. Red and yellow seem to have been the prominent color that most of our students with CVI will look at. And then of course, highly saturated or vibrant colors serve to keep their attention and even attract them to look at the objects and the images. So color preference is very important. And when we look at a child that's looking at things around them, we can kind of determine where or what color is their preference by the direction that they look at. So if you're holding a red cup and a yellow cup, you'll want to see which side they look at first, or what attracts their attention to that color. And that's generally their color preference. Okay, and we have pictures at the bottom here. We have a yellow flower buttercup that's found in our environment, so kids can see it within their environment. We have cups of different colors. Those are great tools to see what the color preference is for our child, and they're familiar objects that we use daily. Then you have on the right bottom screen is Elmo and Cookie Monster and Big Bird, the Sesame Street characters, and they are in yellow, blue, and red. And then we have a red hibiscus on the far right. And again, these are things that, you know, we want to demonstrate that our world is full of color. And so we want to try to get those objects that the child prefers and be able to teach from it, or to be able to get them to view it longer in order to get the details. And that's color preference. Next slide. Now we move into need for movement. So students with CVI or children with CVI, they can look at things, but what, like Lizelle was saying, they kind of look through things or behind something versus at the object. And so when you have movement, it gives, again, that attractability to get them to increase their visual awareness of what's around them. And so when you have movement or shiny reflective objects, which gives the illusion of movement, you're getting their attention and you're grasping or holding their attention a little bit longer. And so they pay attention to screen devices because it's got that backlighting where the light is reflected off of the screen. And then we're, of course, with head movement, some students, if they're not getting the movement that they need, they might move their head back and forth, up and down, just to try to get that object to move. Now, when we think about movement also, like I said, reflective materials such as tinfoil, you can hold it still and it's still within the light will get some sort of movement out of it. Slinkies, we have a picture of a slinky at the bottom left, and those are in different colors as well, orange, yellow, green, red. And slinkies have a lot of movement. Pom-poms, you can get movement out of pom-poms very easily, even in the wind. Pinwheels, balloons. Mylar balloons are the best ones because it has that reflective quality. And then of course, reflective pom-poms, or what we call cellophane, right? Reflective cellophane. And again, these things you can find in our environment, or you can even get things like I was showing you, tinfoil. It's readily available. You don't have to go out and buy things that are going to help our children with CVI and support them in as far as movement goes.
Basically, with movement, it wakes up the visual sense.
Mhm.
A lot of our students don't know how to look yet, or they can see, they don't know how to look, and that's those are the skills we're trying to get out of them. So a lot of the movement wakes up your visual sense. It wakes it up. That's why we always notice students in a moving car, they'll turn their head towards objects outside the window because it catches their attention.
Okay. Next slide. Visual latency. Visual latency is that time that it takes for our students to kind of grasp what's happening. There's new concepts, new things happening around them. And when our eyes see something, it takes time for it to get to our brain. So we're talking about that wait time. And a lot of times it takes longer periods of time, shorter periods of time. It's not something that we can determine. So a child may demonstrate a delay in using vision to look at an object most of the time when a new item is presented or when a new activity starts, and that wait time varies. You may have a slow or delayed response to turning in the direction of the object, or locating the target, or fixating on the object. And then the response time may take longer with complexity as well, or overstimulation. So when there's other things happening around them, at the same time you're presenting that object or that target, that makes a difference in the response time as well. And as the student starts to get more and more support in these, in being able to visually use their vision, they'll decrease. It may decrease that time that they have to process what's happening around them. We can next slide. So visual field preferences. Again, we're looking at I should say how the student turns their head, what visual field they use as far as their eyes go. So they might use what we call their superior or upper. They might have their eyes kind of go upward, lower, and then side to side, depending on what direction we're looking at. Lizelle, can you help me out just a little bit on this one? As far as, body positions and head positions for these young kids in particular.
So for visual field, first of all, visual field are your side and upper and lower fields. This is the one that this vision allows you where you're looking straight at an object, but you can see a ball coming here, or you can see objects coming from this without having to turn your head. Some students have difficulties looking at an object straight ahead, depending on their vision and if there are any other issues with their vision. But usually a lot of our students kind of like to turn their head to the side and look at objects because it kind of helps filter. Some of our students get a little too overwhelmed, and some of our students tend to prefer looking at objects from the side, but they also have difficulties looking from the front of their face and would prefer this way as well. So that's another observation that we have to take. So if you'll see the pictures, if you see the pictures on the screen, we have some students looking at the keyboard using her left field preference. We have a child, a little baby, looking at Big Bird. Also, she seems to be turning towards her left side, using her right field. And then we have a student looking at a slinky whose head is down, but so she's looking at the slinky using her upper field. Some of our students prefer to use certain fields for that, but it's very typical that they use their peripheral vision.
So for young children or babies, we'd say babies, when we observe how they use their visual field, it's important to try trial and error kind of thing. Place the object in different visual fields around the child, or turning the child into a different body position in order for them to view what it is the object is you're presenting. And so keep those things in mind. You know, a lot of the characteristics, it's not just a one-time shot. You don't just show it and present it one time. You'll want to observe and give different scenarios, different times of the day, even specific, you know, visual field preferences and colors, and just try different modalities in order for them to be able to see it. Especially with babies, it's a little bit harder because babies can't really communicate with us, but we can observe how they move and what they do. That kind of gives us an indication of these different characteristics. Next slide. Need for light. This one here is also, again, like Lizelle was saying, is just grasping their attention and getting them to view things. They exhibit unusual attraction to the need for light. Some students will even be looking at something and all of a sudden you'll see them look up at the light because the light's up there and it's an attraction. It's almost like they can't help it, can't avoid looking at it. The door opens in a dark room, immediately they're drawn to that light. They may spend prolonged periods of time even gazing at the primary sources of light, whether natural light or artificial light. They may be difficult to redirect the child's attention away from that light source. For some reason, our brain just kind of likes that light, and it just gives them that direction, and it's hard to get their attention back to where we need it. Use of lighted toys and objects will accentuate or highlight the target, and tendency to discriminate details or show increased visual attention when materials are presented on the backlight. And so we see this picture of the polka dots, different color polka dots, yellow, red, and blue on a backlit, we call it a light box, and the students looking at the dots. And so that light keeps her attention there. Then we can also use a regular flashlight to illuminate the different, or spotlight what we want them to see. And then that also will get their attention. It also helps, the spotlighting helps to isolate some of the objects that we're presenting or images that we're presenting. And in isolation, we eliminate some of that complexity or background. Okay, distance viewing. So typically, a child with CVI will respond when objects are presented within 16 to 24 inches from his or her face and behave as though highly nearsighted. But when things are complex or put into, for instance, when you look at the picture there, you have Tigger in isolation. You can kind of pick out all the details of Tigger and there's his salient features, we call it. So we know it's Tigger because of the features on him. But then when you throw him in a box with all these different toys and colors, the complexity, it becomes much harder to decipher where or what the objects are in that box. And so even though they bring the object, or the box, I should say, close to their face, they're still not grasping what it is that they're looking at, simply because the array, the visual complexity. Difficulty recognizing even familiar or large objects presented beyond their immediate area. So a lot of times they may look at things around them, they see it, but they're not familiar. And so it's something that, or it could be familiar, but they're not understanding what they're seeing.
With some of our students also, the farther an object gets, the more it disappears. They see better when it's near because it filters out all the extra stuff that we see distance. So near is usually better for for the students with CVI. The farther you put the object, you'll notice that they lose the visual part of it. The object starts to disappear. Some students simply, if you could be standing at right in front of them at 10 feet, the moment you move, they lose you in the space. So a lot of our students have a lot of difficulties with that kind of distance viewing.
Yes.
Okay, Lizelle, you want to take this one?
The visual reflex responses, I find that this is the easiest one to assess. It's a lot of our students with CVI lack visual reflex responses. So they don't blink when you put your finger up to the bridge of your, right in between your eyes, right here, the bridge of your nose. Usually when you touch that, students, kids, adults blink the moment. It's a response. For our students with CVI, sometimes that's absent. And then visual threat, that's when when something comes at you and then you blink right away, like if you put your hand right in front of your face, you know, the response is to blink. And for some of our students, that's not there. You can flail your hands around and they won't respond with a blink.
Okay, next slide. Difficulty with visual novelty. So again, we talked about preferences, right? And preferences in color, preferences for movement, preferences for light. So familiar items also are a preference for our students with CVI. They may even ignore new or unfamiliar items. And sometimes, and it doesn't mean don't introduce new and unfamiliar items. It basically just means we need to go through the process of giving them time, introducing it with more frequency, and allowing them to explore those items or those things that you're trying to teach. Familiar items, it's just something that they've become accustomed to, and they've, you know, they know it, they know this item, and so the details on it and all that are for them visual. They don't have to, I want to say, they don't have to examine it. And so it's harder when unfamiliar items, you have to examine it and just kind of get to know it first. So it's a difficulty kind of skill. Go ahead, Lizelle.
Absence of visually guided reach. This was something for me personally, I didn't realize that we do. A lot of us, when we reach for an object, we look at the object and reach for it. Yes, that is typical, that is normal, that's how we reach. For our students with CVI, they have difficulties with looking and reaching at the same time. They tend to, so a lot of our students with CVI will look at the object, turn their head away, and then reach for it. That's the absence of visually guided reach. So we always want them to, we want to practice with them to be able to look at, and we'll discuss another characteristic similar to this a little bit later on, but it's just, there's too much, you're asking too much. It's an overwhelming skill to have to look and reach for an object at the same time for our students with CVI. So sometimes you'll notice that when they're reaching out for a doorknob, you'll see them turn their head away, but they'll still reach for that. But that's a skill that we have to work on, because that can be a safety issue, a safety hazard for some of our students too. So it does so we always try and make it so that objects are simple, objects are something that they enjoy, and then we move it around a lot so that we can try and get them to look first, reach at the same time. That kind of skill is what we work. So they tend to localize or fixate first on the object and then turn away to reach for it.
Difficulties with visual complexity. It encompasses 4 interrelated aspects. We have, I'm going to move my screen, complexity of patterns on the surface of objects. We have complexity of visual array, and that's what we talked about earlier with having all these objects in a box or all together in a certain area. And then complexity of sensory environment. That's all of the different things that are going on around us at the same time, the noises, the smells, even the tasting or touching, all those are very complex sensory when it comes to what's happening around us in the environment. And then complexity of visual elements of human faces. Believe it or not, we take for granted that when we recognize people, we don't see the different details of the person's face. And a person's human face is very complex. Otherwise, we would all look alike. So, that's something we have to take into account. But we do take for granted that. And then, going back to the complexity of patterns on the surface of objects. So there are objects when we talk about, for instance, this is just a ball. But if you think about it, the complexity of it is the dots on it, the stripes. It's hard to decipher that this is actually a ball, an image of a ball. And so that kind of pattern on the surface of objects is what we're talking about. They're not able to decipher it. Okay, we're going to go through those 4 complexities, and the complexity of patterns on a surface of the object. I was just talking about that. If you take a look at the photo there with the baby toy, the different colors and buttons, it's just way too complex for students with CVI. Again, it's not to say that we don't introduce it. It's to say that they may not gain the whole aspect of it and understand it. And then you have at the bottom picture, you have a background felt board with just like 2 items hanging there. And again, it's in a preferred color, yellow and red. And so that again, allows us to teach those items in that isolation, and the students can build their understanding from there. Simplicity is key to most consistent visual responses to objects and images, and the objects or targets we want in single color as much as possible, and to be in preferably the preferred colors so that we can teach from it. Simple patterns, solid high contrast background. Black is just something we've chosen because Black is neutral. It really stands out, or the objects stand out away from it. Support your child's ability to establish and maintain visual attention. And these are the kind of things that we're looking for when we're trying to support our students or our children with CVI. Okay. Complexity of visual array, we talked about that also. Visual information may be seen but cannot be sorted, interpreted, or understood when it's in a complex setting. If you look at the first picture, we have a mat or a tablecloth maybe with all kinds of designs and colors. And when you look at it, it's pretty. But then if you put objects onto designed backgrounds, it's too complex to be able to see the Pooh Bear. It's almost like that Find Waldo game, right? So that's what we're looking at. And then when we, even a familiar object presented in that tablecloth is still not going to be able to be seen as easily or recognized. And then we have the less complex, which is the middle picture. We have a duck on a flashcard with the black background, the black felt background again. And that's a little bit easier. Of course, though, with ducks, when we talk about ducks, we're looking at the salient features, you know, are all ducks yellow? Do they have a beak? All ducks have feet, all ducks have wings. Those are the salient features that when we look at it visually, we're able to say, oh, that's a duck. But for our students with CVI, they might not be able to put that part to whole together in order to make out a duck when they look at it. The next one for visual array is it includes what the child is looking at, so the visual clutter, but any form of sensory input which is occurring as well. So if you look here, really less complex is showing the actual object versus the images. And then you have the image on a white background, a black background, and then of course the actual object. That's probably one of the most ideal ways to present new concepts to students with CVI. Complexity of sensory environment. This one's very hard to control, and simply because it is our environment, and our environment can be very overwhelming. On the top picture, you see a soccer game going on. Very hard. You've got movement, you've got light, you've got colors, but at the same time, everything is moving quickly and the background is very complex. And then when you look also at a classroom setting, it looks beautiful with all the different colors and it's attractive, but it's not something that our students with CVI can pick out. And even with us, when we look at it, you're looking at a whole lot of details in there that it's hard to pick out and isolate each one. So it makes it a complex environment. So this impacts the multi-sensory inputs on visual attention. And then of course, maintaining visual attention is difficult when touch, voice, and even strong olfactory inputs compete with it. And then maybe unable to establish or maintain visual attention when there are distractions from other stimuli. So if you look at the less complex or the ideal way of viewing things, you have a child sitting there with a binder that has the black background, and the image on the black background is a duck and a D for duck. And they're able to view it and spend more time looking at the details on it.
Yeah, so, and you also notice her environment is less complex. She's facing a wall. There's nothing competing with her. It looks quiet. The lighting is very dim because maybe she has a sensitivity to light. So when we talk about sensory of environment, we're talking about what the child is smelling, what the child is hearing, what the child is feeling, what is all of that input. And anytime a child has to compete those sensory inputs, vision is always the first one to go away. So when there is a lot of noise happening in your background, your ears are going to take over, and it's going to, your vision is going to take a step back. It just happens naturally. So that's kind of we want vision to be forefronted when we are working with children with CVI.
Complexity of visual elements of human faces. Again, we talked about how complex the human face is. It often demonstrates unusual regard for faces by looking past or looking through the face. And that's something that our students with CVI commonly do. Eye-to-eye contact is generally absent. A lot of times when they're, when you're looking at them or talking to them, they look away, or they're looking past you, like you're not getting that eye-to-eye contact. And then as a level of functional vision increase, the child with CVI may begin to discriminate faces in a slow and predictable way. And what we mean by that too is you're going to combine the voice with the face. They gain that recognition of the voice with the face. Then it's, even maybe some like you see on the top where the child is coming head to head with the adult to see what their face looks like, and then they build that recognition from there. Some of our students may never even recognize, they actually recognize mom and dad's voices before they'll recognize them visually.
Yes, that's the salient feature. So for our students with CVI, if you have an airplane and a bird, they would think the objects are the same because they both have wings. So for human faces, we know how to tell the difference. Me and Diane look different because we have different noses, we have different lips, we have different eyes and eyebrows. But for a child with CVI, everyone has a face. Everyone has the same. So looking away is a lot easier. They probably only see the body. But the parts that make us unique is where they have a hard time picking up on them. And as we work through their vision and help them to learn how to pick up on those features, then slowly they'll start to recognize these little things in their environment.
So these are the resources we've kind of picked out, and the CVI book, second edition reading, it talks about the CVI characteristics in detail, and also what it's like to do an assessment, what ideas for assessment kits. And again, you know, knowing the CVI characteristics will give us some sort of guidance in being able to have that discussion with our TVI, our teacher of visual impairment, as well as our ophthalmologist, and be able to support our children with CVI. Okay, and then we have iPad links. And again, you know, we talk about how the back screen or the lighted back screen helps our students be able to gain a little more of the visual things that we need them to do. And so those are just the links to, if you're interested in checking them out.
There's a lot of games and apps that you can use to, if you have, if you're worried about your child having CVI, and you're confirmed that your child has CVI, there's a lot of apps out there that can help us improve on the skills needed for functional vision. The goal is always for functional vision. Okay. Any questions? Does anyone have any questions?
Who we have there?
Ponape, do you have any questions? I know you have a big group there and people in the back. Or Henry, do you have any questions? Rosie or Sherry, hi. Ginger or Jen or anybody?
Okay, so I believe you all will be also receiving some sort of packet, right, with some materials to help you along the way support your students with CVI. And one of the things that you'll be receiving, let me just take these off, is a story felt board, and it's homemade. You can make it on a regular folder, just a file folder. That's what I have here, is a file folder. And then I stuck the felt board onto, or the felt material. This is just, see, it's a really thin felt material. It feels like cloth. And we stick it on here. I'm gonna hold this back just a little bit. And from there, you can tell stories and put objects or images on it. And here I have a wagon, a red wagon, which has the Velcro in the back, or what we call hook and loop. And I can stick it on there as I'm telling the story about a red wagon. And this is helpful for our students who you want them to see that a wagon has wheels, a wagon has a handle, a wagon has a base. and things like that. And that way they can identify the, and then again, you have the color, a preferred color, right? The same thing with taking something else and you're talking about it, giving them descriptive language about the sun, things like that. You can also take real objects and put them on there, like, you know, for instance, a scrunchie. I would take a real object and put it on there. Scissors, you can take a pair of scissors and put it on there. And this helps our students to be able to see the different details on it. The way I have this file folder in particular is I use the inside pockets to hold all of the items, all of the images that I want to use for the story. And then I would show it to the child as we go along. Again, in their field preference. So some children may look at it from the side view. It may be best if they're laying down and you hold it over them and they can view it, or they want the central view. Okay, and just think about those things. But this is, I believe, coming to you guys soon, if not, if you haven't received it already. Okay, and it's a felt board storyboard.
Yes, it's on its way. It should be coming shortly.
Okay.
This is Jennifer, and I have a question for you, Diane and Lizelle. In talking about what you just had up with the felt board, maybe because you talked a little bit about how faces are very, very complex and visually distracting. So when you're doing something like that, maybe you could tell us where you would put that felt board in relationship not only to the child's preferred field of view, but where do you put your body? Like, are you putting yourself between it, or where how does that work?
So I know typically I use it where it's on their desk or on like Lizelle was showing just against a wall. If you notice, even like our clothing, what we're wearing, we wear black or we wear a solid color so that we can hold it up and just basically, you know, we're not interfering with our clothes also, because the complexity of our clothes makes a difference too. But I usually put it up for many of our students so that it's close enough and that you're not seeing my face at the same time, or you're not seeing other background at the same time. So good question, Jen.
Awesome, thank you.
I have a question too. This is Melanie speaking about complexity of the face, because I know a lot of parents and teachers really want our kids to know who we are. And what do you recommend? Do you recommend that we wear like a red hat or a color that's a favorite for the kid, or what do you recommend?
With my students, I usually do that. I wear a hat of a favorite color. I put little flowers on my ears, or toys that they like, little beads, so that they start looking. They may not be looking at my face, but they'll look at the object that's their favorite color. They'll look at the object, and then slowly we can kind of bring them into it closer and that start noticing the face. Yeah, that's what I do.
Yeah, that's a good point, because the flower is small also. You don't want anything that's going to be so big, like a hat that covers your whole, you know, face. Of course, during the pandemic was really difficult because we all had to wear masks. And so facial expressions and facial recognition was just something we didn't ask them to do, because we're all wearing masks and it's so different. Now that we're back, you know, into it, we can go ahead and bring out those different ways of getting them to do the facial recognition. Many of our students though go along with voice recognition and as well as the face, or there's a certain object that they're used to. So I have a student that will grab my hand, and I'm always wearing a watch, and she knows me by that kind of thing. You know, she's like, oh, this is Miss Diane, you know, and she'll know because she's feeling for different things that identify us. Yeah, smells, believe it or not, even smells, they know your perfume if you always wear the same one or not wear, they know your soap. your your laundry detergent, that all makes a difference in what they're viewing, and they'll recognize you. And sometimes it's funny because you say, oh, see, they do recognize me. No, they actually recognized your smell so much. And that, it's like, it's hard to determine. But eventually, like I said, you just want to keep introducing it. Like Lizelle was saying, just having something to identify you by makes a difference.
Okay,
This
thank
is
you.
interesting. I would like to say thank you for your presentation because it hit home for me because my son just been assessed for CVI, and it's like every slide I was like, check, check, you know. Because, he tilts his head to the right, and he does everything.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable, but yeah, it's just
Yeah. And those 10 characters, just knowing those 10 characteristics, you can actually come up with ways to adapt his environment. You can come up just knowing what it is out of those 10 characteristics that he's dominant in, right? You can go ahead and start modeling their day for them or their environment and setting up their environment for them. And that makes a big difference. If you don't know the 10 characteristics, it's going to seem like their day is very challenging and the child's very challenging to work with. But once you have, some idea or observations done with the 10 characteristics, it makes it easier to understand what we can support the child with and how we can work with their environment and their vision.
right. That's very true. Yeah, very true. Because we know to present objects on his left side, and make sure everything's very close to him. And he does like shiny objects. So yes.
Awesome.
So this is Melanie. I also just wanted to say thank you, and I think it's really important for people to keep in mind. I know that there's not a lot of TVIs on all of the islands, and even here on the Big Island, we don't have one right now. But if you have an idea and you're aware of the 10 characteristics like Diane and Lizelle shared, you can do something about it because it is the #1 growing disability, CVI, for a cause of blindness or cause of vision loss right now in the world. And the thing about CVI is that you can do something about it. You never completely resolve it, so you're never really over it, but you can improve your vision because it's about training your brain. So I think it's very exciting, and I love how they shared. And if you have not signed up for boxes for your kids or your students that you're working with, they're free. So make sure that you write to us and sign up, and you'll get a box that goes along with all of the sessions that we're doing. They'll be mailed to you around the time of the presentation or before. So thank you very much. Any other comments?
I do want to say thank you so much, Melanie and Jen and Ginger and Ross, for all your support too with these boxes. Because to be honest with you, during the pandemic, it was hard to get things out to them. But having these complete sets to be able to go out with the instructions and so forth just made it a lot easier for us to keep in touch with our students. And so, yes, thank you so much.
And this is Jennifer. One last little thing for those of you who are here. It was a lot of information that we shared today that Diane and Lizelle put together, and we did record this, so you will be able to watch it back to maybe you wanted to re-watch a specific part, and it will be available. So if any of your colleagues or parents or anybody you know that might benefit from reviewing, watching, learning about this, we will have the link available, and please feel free to share it with your friends, your family, your colleagues, and whoever else might benefit from it. I see more people in Pohnpei. Hi, guys. Awesome, awesome. Well, if there aren't any other questions here, I think we can close out If anybody does have questions, I believe you folks should have access to the emails, either from Ginger or myself or Melanie, and we can definitely give you guys Diane and Lazelle's contact information, so that you can ask them directly, because they are our experts on the topic and have a wealth of knowledge beyond this to share. So don't hesitate to reach out if you need to. Thank you everyone for joining us today.
Thank you.
We do have a survey that we'll be sending out. It's in the link as well. If you guys see it there in the chat, there's a link that Ginger posted. So if you want to take a quick minute, it's a short survey. It helps us, one, stay funded so we can keep doing what we're doing for our kiddos and our families, but also helps guide us in knowing what more information you might like, not only on this topic, but on other topics related to working with deaf, hard of hearing, deaf, blind, and our severe kiddos. So please take a minute to do that. Does Pohnpei have a question? I see a hand up over there. Do you guys have a question before we head out? You're muted. So.
Yes, we have a question regarding the evaluations. We tried to open it, but we cannot access it.
Oh. Well, let me go see if I can figure out why you can't access it. What message does it give you?
The one on the chat box.
Yeah, let me go see. Let me check the settings. Sometimes, nope, that's not it. That's not it. I don't know.
Ginger, can you share the uncontracted version of it? So instead of it saying forms.gle or something, there's like a full URL you can send. Sometimes the truncated version isn't accessible if someone has a firewall up.
There you go. It is in the chat.
Okay.
Perfect.
All right.
Can you try that one, please?
And we can also send it. Lizelle, are you able to get into that? And Diane, are you guys able to open it from there?
I'm in it, but it looks like Jen is the one marking for me.
What?
Yeah, like see, you can mark, see, can you see what I'm doing?
No.
Okay, we're in it now, but are we gonna fill out one for all of us or individually? Fill out the evaluation.
Oh, individual. It would be great if you could each fill it out individually. You could do it on your own computer. That would be really helpful. The more, the better for us.
Can you email it to?
Yes, we will email it to everybody on the list. We'll email it and please share it with the people that we don't see there. I see Miyoko. Josephine, I can't tell who's sitting right next to you.
Me.
No, other side.
Miyoko.
Other side.
Miyoko.
Really?
Raylene. Okay, hi. Okay. Mariner and Julene. Okay, sorry.
Like they're like this big on my screen.
Yeah. And if you do show the recording to anybody else, please feel free to have them take the evaluation too. Like Henry was going to have some parents that couldn't get on, so please share it. And if you could help them with the evaluation, that'd really help us.
All right.
I think
Thank
we're
you,
good.
everyone, again.
Thank you,
Good to
everybody.
see everybody.
See you
Thank you
soon.
so much.
Have a
good
lovely
one.
weekend. Stay safe, everyone.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Henry. Bye, Pohnpei.
Jennifer need to? Oh no, this shit.